So I have finished another saga of the One Piece manga, reading now just over 200 chapters of the series, and I am here to kind of give you my review for it. But I will be honest with you guys, I was really conflicted when starting this video because I have to be honest with you, and now that I've read this much of One Piece, I think I can say that although I think there is really great storytelling here, I think there is really great character work going on here. Overall, I'm not sure if this is the manga for me because I think I figured out the reason why too, and I'll get into it as I go through. I have my notes over here to the side like the last two videos. I have positives, I have negatives, but ultimately I think I have figured out why One Piece just has not vibed with me. And I did like a lot of the opening stuff. I liked a lot of the character building stuff that we got before in the East Blue. But I think that a lot of my gripes about the series are not necessarily going away, but only getting stronger as time goes on. And I'll be honest with you guys, there were times reading this saga that I was really, really struggling to get through it. But let me go into it, let me try to explain, and we'll kind of go from there. Now, the first thing from the beginning of the saga is them kind of going into Grand Line. And I like this idea that they couldn't really pass just through the water itself because they had to go over this mountain and all these obstacles that are in the way to basically keep out people that are not prepared to enter this new world of Grand Line and the things that happen there. And so I like these obstacles. I like that it's not necessarily so easy. And this one might have to be explained to me a little bit more, but there's these like magnetic forces that mess with equipment and mess with the compasses or something like that, to the point where if you are on one of the islands like within the Grand Line, you need to leave at a particular point in order to actually be able to navigate and show the direction of where you need to go, which adds urgency to particular islands. It also adds the point where it's like if you're stuck on an island and you can't get off and you don't know exactly what time to get off. So it makes things very treacherous and it adds a lot of obstacles. And I really like that idea. And a lot of people talk about how the world building aspect of One Piece is one of its greatest strengths. And I think that that's very, very true. I think that this definitely adds to that, along with a lot of the other teases that have been kind of planted along the way, because there's a lot of things that are mentioned that aren't really delved into yet, but they all give you these little threads of like where the story could potentially go. And I think if you're doing a story that is this long, that's going to be over 1,000 chapters, I think that is a good way to do it and a good way to approach it. Actually, one thing that I really did like was in the beginning, we had that whale that kept like bashing his head up against the mountain because his crew had left and have been gone for who knows how long now, like decades now. And inside of the whale, there was a ship that he swallowed that had this old doctor that apparently knew Gold Roger, which was like the most infamous pirate that started this whole journey to begin with. So he supposedly knew this guy. So it makes things seem a little bit more like attainable, I guess. Like now you're encountering characters that actually know these like big, kind of legendary legacy status characters. You're actually meeting people that kind of interacted them. The same thing when they meet Ace a little bit later on and the things that he mentioned. So I do like that aspect of it too. And I like that Luffy gave the whale kind of like a new purpose, because odds are that the crew he's waiting for is not coming back. Who knows? We might meet them later in the story. I'm not sure. But the point is this really sad, tragic idea of this whale that just keeps waiting and waiting. It reminded me of that Futurama episode where Fry's dog just like waited forever and eventually died. It's like super, super freaking sad. So Luffy kind of gives him a new purpose where he starts this conflict and he says, well, now we have to fight again. So now you have a reason to stay alive because we need to eventually fight again. So I appreciated that, and I appreciated that little moment. I don't know. I'm a big animal guy, so whenever you're doing things with like the emotional aspect of like a connection with an animal, I appreciate that. So I like that. I thought all that stuff was good. When they get to Whiskey Peak, that is also an aspect of the story that I really like, because right off the bat, you knew things were too good to be true. Everyone was so nice. Everyone was welcoming them in, and you knew something had to be suspicious. I mean, I've read enough stories, I've watched enough movies that if you just enter a town and everyone is that nice to you and that eager to like give you food and give you alcohol, something is going down. And obviously it was a whole town full of bounty hunters. So I like that aspect. And I really liked that Zoro was the guy that kind of like saw through it and stayed up through the night and basically said like, alcohol is not going to affect me. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I can handle this shit. And he basically takes on everybody which was great. I love that because Zoro, I love when he has his moments. I love when Zoro has his time to shine. Zoro and Sanji, as I read through the series, are definitely like my two favorite characters. And whenever Zoro has this moment to kind of just show what a badass he is, which he has plenty during the saga, but this was one of those moments where he just like wrecked shop on everybody. And I really, really like that. That was a lot of fun. The only thing I didn't like was during the fight, Luffy wakes up and sees that Zoro's taken out all these people. And one of the guys says, like, Zoro beat us up. And so Luffy just immediately goes to attack Zoro. But I just thought there's two moments that with the characters that really, really annoyed me during the Alabasta saga. And this one is with Luffy. I have another one later with Sanji. But, like, I just didn't, because Luffy, like, values and respects his crew so much, and that has been like the defining thing of his character, and that's what makes him a good captain, is that he recognizes the value in each and every crew member, and he brings out the best in them. And so, you know, like in Arlong Park with Nami, you know, he did everything he could to basically prove that she was a good person and like belonged on his crew. Like he had that kind of like emotional attachment to her to the point where like he's not going to accept the idea that she's going to be a bad person. But he immediately flies into a battle with Zoro because of what one person tells him. Like, why would he not trust Zoro's word over the town's word? I don't know. It just seemed like a really weird moment for his character. And I get that Luffy is like a simplistic character, but I think that the beauty is in his simplicity and how he feels about his crew and how he feels about his friends and how far, like what lengths he will go for the people that he cares about. And it just seemed like a really weird moment. Maybe it was just played up for humor, but that's going to kind of lead into, I think, where I don't vibe with One Piece as much, but I'll get into that in a moment. I'm going to continue just kind of talking about the positives. So they meet a new character named Vivi, and I really did enjoy her, and I liked her story arc along the way. At first, I wasn't sure how I felt about her because she just seemed like maybe she was a little bit too similar to Nami, and in a way, they have a very similar story, kind of, because, you know, the Alabasta, you know, the kingdom, it kind of felt like a more extreme, bigger stakes version of Arlong Park, how there's a villain there that has kind of taken over everything. And, you know, Vivi was kind of like subject to Crocodile's wrath, where Nami was subject to, what was the fish guy's name? You know what I'm saying? So it kind of felt like a bigger, higher stakes version of Arlong Park. So at first, you know, it seemed like Vivi was a little bit too close to Nami, but as things unfolded, she definitely really, really came into her own. And actually, I think I might like her character a little bit more than Nami's character by the end of it. I thought she was a great addition, and I like what they did with her to the point where, you know, how much she values her town and how much she is willing to do for it. Like, she is the princess. I don't know if I mentioned that. She's the princess of Alabasta. So she has this engraved, like, responsibility to do something about the situation that's there. And just the fact that she feels like she's just incapable in some points, but at the same time just continues to persevere. I'm getting ahead of myself, but there's a great moment where Luffy and the crew are locked within a cage, and it's kind of like just her and Crocodile, and she has to step up, and she has to be the one to kind of like figure out this situation, even though, you know, Sanji does come in and help and other characters help out. But when she was kind of left on her own, like she's the one that has to deal with this, I thought they did a really, really good job basically showcasing her character. She wasn't just a character to get Luffy's crew from point A to point B. Like, they actually gave her her own ongoing storyline, and really she is kind of like the main character of the Alabasta saga. So I thought that was really interesting, and it was kind of like how Luffy's crew helps propel her as a character. So I'm wondering if that is something that One Piece does periodically, like as the story arcs go on. Do they introduce a character and they use, you know, the Straw Hat crew as a way to kind of build up and motivate and push and help a new character persevere, as opposed to just having the crew themselves be the ones that do that? Even though the characters do have development, I think that the crew themselves helped propel Vivi's character until the very end. There was an island that they went to, Little Garden, that I thought was going to be interesting at first, and there was dinosaurs, and I was like, all right, cool, dinosaurs, like, give me dinosaurs, I'm down. But they were only there a little while, and they fought some of the minions and stuff, and the two giants that were fighting each other, they were kind of amusing, but I'll be honest, that whole segment, I was like tuning out really hard. I was tuning out really hard. Like I was trying my best to pay as much of attention as I could, but that whole island segment just wasn't doing it for me. And this is where I think things continued to go downhill for me a little bit before they started to pick back up when you actually got to Alabasta. There was that guy, what was his name? I wrote it down. Where is it? Maybe I didn't write it down. The guy that was the supposed leader of the area where Chopper was from, where he shows up and he just starts eating the boat. This is where, and I don't know if I want to get into my negatives yet. I guess I will. I think I realized why it's hard for me to connect with One Piece. And I think a lot of it really, truly does come down to how silly the manga is. And again, I want to state this very, very clearly. I am not saying there's anything wrong with One Piece by doing this. This is a particular style, a particular tone, and particular artwork that Oda does, and it works for the series. It's just, it's going to vibe with some people, and it's not going to vibe with other people. It's just how if you took a manga that's drawn, very realistically detailed and dark, if it is something like a Vagabond or a Gantz or something, like that's not going to vibe with everybody. And I completely understand that, and I respect that. Even though I love those manga, I could understand how maybe it just wouldn't work for some people. And I think for me, the thing that it comes down to is just the silliness, the wackiness, the cartoony vibes to it. And how everything has to be undercut with humor and a joke or like an exaggerated character face. Like every single chapter, almost every chapter, there has to be a character whose mouth is like gaping wide and we're staring like directly into their mouth with gigantic teeth. And it's like, I understand that that's Oda's style and that's just the way that he writes. He writes things silly. He writes things lighthearted. I understand that. But I think after getting to this point, after getting to like nearly 200 chapters, it just started to bother me. And it just started to get worse and worse over time for me. And I think the thing that just takes me out of it is because he is writing some serious shit here. Like when we get into Alabasta and the rebellion that's happening and the warring between all of these characters and what's happening with Vivi's character, there's a lot of important, impactful things that are happening here. There's a lot of dramatic stuff that's happening. There's a lot of serious stuff that's going on within the story, but I just felt it was very hard to connect to the story because it kept being so silly chapter to chapter. It's like the ongoing story, like what's happening is serious, but it was hard to be able to take it serious when every single chapter just is like more cartoony jokes over and over again. And again, I don't want it to sound like I'm shitting on the series. I'm not saying that One Piece is doing anything wrong by presenting its story this way. I'm just saying that for me personally, my sensibilities and my taste, it was very, very hard to connect and to feel the dramatic weight of what was happening because of the silliness. And that's just me personally. I'm not saying anything's wrong with One Piece. I want to state that. I'm not saying anything is wrong with the storytelling. I'm just saying for me, the wackiness of it, the silliness of it, it was just hard for me to connect to it. Speaking of silliness, we introduced a character named Chopper, who is a reindeer that ate a human fruit. And it just got me thinking, okay, so if a human ate a human fruit, what would happen? Would nothing happen? Would they just become more human? Also, Chopper can transform into these different humanoid forms. So I don't know. I didn't hate Chopper. I thought he was kind of cute. I actually really liked his story because he was an outcast. And I really, and this is something, this is where my confliction begins because the silliness of it just kind of takes me out of it. But at the same time, the actual story and character of Chopper and how he's this outcast and how, the reindeer didn't accept him. I know it's like a Rudolph. I know it's a Rudolph parody, but the reindeer didn't accept him. And then, he was part human, but the humans don't accept him because they see him as a monster. And so he doesn't really have a place. And then he finally finds this one doctor guy that, is a little bit nice to him, or at least nicer than anybody else. And he's sick and he goes through this journey to find this magic healing mushroom. I think it was a mushroom, right? And so, he brings it to him and the doctor's like, thank you, you healed me. But really the doctor lied to him just to make him feel better. And it didn't heal him. And so there's that tragedy there. And so the whole Chopper storyline is actually really sad. It's actually really good. And that's the thing. And I think that that's where that's where my confliction lies with the series, is because I like the story that's happening here, but chapter by chapter, reading it chapter by chapter, it's just like the wackiness and the silliness just takes me out of it. And so like, I think if you told me like the storyboard for the Chopper story, I'd be like, oh man, that's a pretty sad little thing, this poor little guy. But then reading it chapter to chapter, chapter to Chopper, it just didn't hit as much as I wanted it to. When Chopper just doesn't feel accepted and Luffy's just like, just shut up and come with us. Like, I like that. It's just like, we don't care. We don't care that you're a monster. I think they even call him a monster in like a positive way. Like, look at this monster over here. Like, they like it. So I kind of like that, because I just vibe with like the outcast kind of motif and stories. And so like, I like that kind of stuff. So Chopper's stuff was all right for me. You know what I mean? As far as like the story of it goes. Also, I do want to say, like, the old lady, like the old doctor, she says that there's no magic that can heal. Like, he wants to learn medicine so that he can heal people. I understand that she says there's no magic mushroom that can heal people. I mean, I'm just saying, like, in the real world, yeah, absolutely. There's no magic fix that's just going to, like, heal somebody from cancer or something. Like, we need science and research and medicine and all that kind of stuff. But in the world of One Piece, where there is magic fruit that can make people into rubber or fire or sand or turn a reindeer into a human, you're telling me there's no, like, magical, like, items out there that could heal people? There's no, like, sensu beans out there somewhere? In the whole world of One Piece, where there's magic and giants and dinosaurs and all this stuff? Come on. Come on, there's got to be a healing something out there. Like, I just don't believe that. But then we actually get into Alabasta, and I do think there was a lot of great stuff happening here. We meet the guy number 2. They're all, like, numbered. Like, all of the minions of Crocodile, they're all numbered. He comes aboard the ship. Didn't really love his character, but, you know, he has one of those abilities that's very, very useful, and he does kind of, like, connect with the crew in a way. Although, just them allowing him to touch all of them so that he can kind of, like, shape-shift into them was, like, dude, like, what? Why would you let him do that? Anyways, and I like the idea of the crew coming up with these secret code. Like, they draw the thing on their arm and wrap it up and stuff like that so that they know who is who kind of like in the future. So I liked all that stuff that they did. And we got into Crocodile, who I think is probably the best villain so far in the manga. Although he is kind of like just an evil guy, but he's really good at being evil. I liked him more than the fish people. I liked him more than Krieg. You know, I liked him more than the other characters, so he was fine for me. He actually worked pretty decently as a villain, as a bad guy doing bad things that is causing this, basically, this massive chaos and rebellion, you know, drying up, you know, making everything into a desert and stuff like that for these people, and, you know, just doing, like, really bad shit. Doing bad shit. They also mentioned that he's one of the 7 warlord pirates, which is something that was mentioned earlier. So this means that, you know, he's kind of a big deal, right? He's one of the 7. I mean, there's probably more characters that are more powerful than the 7 out there, and I don't even actually know who all of the 7 are. They've mentioned a few of them, and Crocodile is one, but they also mentioned things in these chapters where it's like they mentioned Blackbeard and Whitebeard. So I'm imagining, because of the name difference, those are probably 2 people that are like at each other's throats. So they mentioned them, so that's a setup. And then Ace shows up, which apparently is Luffy's older brother. He's there. And again, like, I recognize that the Ace introduction is pretty much just to say, hey, look at this guy. He's a badass. He has fire powers. He gives Luffy a note that seems to have nothing on it, but it's probably magic in some way and it'll help him in the future. But like, they don't really do anything with him. He's just kind of there. He just kind of introduces him, but I think it's just more of Oda just kind of like throwing little threads. Like, we're going to mention Blackbeard and Whitebeard, and here's Ace and stuff. Like, he does this thing where, like, he just kind of mentions things, but then goes on with the storyline, and then, like, these things don't come back into play until, like, hundreds of chapters later. So that's kind of his thing, and that's what I just imagine the Ace thing is. Like, hey, we're just going to mention Ace. He's going to be important later, but then he pieces out. Same thing with, like, the guy with the cloak from before that controlled the weather or whatever, or like, you know, other things that he's done like that, or Shanks, or, you know, something like that. So other things I actually already mentioned, I liked when Vivi had to fight for herself when the crew was captured. Oh yeah, also the cigar guy is there, and the other girl, Bounty Hunter, they've kind of like, they kind of interacted, and they had moments where they could have gone after Luffy, but they kind of let him go to like help him, help the town, basically. So it's like, even though they're after him, they do recognize the good that he's doing. And that's kind of the interesting thing, is like their bounty keeps going up, and they're known as pirates, and all of the, like pirates are, seen as like the, outlaws and stuff and like, criminals or whatever. But like everybody notices that all Luffy's crew is doing is good for other people. So that's one of the things in there that I thought was pretty neat. When Luffy actually does fight Crocodile, we get his power, and he's basically taking a devil fruit that turns himself into sand. So he's like impossible to hit. He's basically the Sandman from Spider-Man. You try to hit him and you go right through him. And again, this is one of those moments where like the first fight with him and Luffy, I was trying to take it seriously, but Luffy would do all these silly things and exaggerated kind of body movements and stuff that just didn't make the fight feel serious to me. Also, when he gets stabbed with a hook, obviously I'm only in chapter like 170 by that point, so I obviously know he's going to be fine. So I didn't really feel anything when that happened. I like that Robin helped him out. So Robin is a character I was looking forward to meeting because, I like my nice, long dark-haired women. I'm a fan. So I liked seeing Robin. I didn't know that she had a power, because I knew about Robin just from like knowing about One Piece, but I didn't know who she was or what her story was or what her backstory was or even if she had a power. So she can create limbs in different places, which is, I'm not going to go there. But she helps Luffy out, so she definitely has more going on than meets the eye. She definitely has her own motivations, but, I couldn't really get a good grasp of like what side she was playing. So from a writing standpoint, again, I think that was done well because I couldn't really tell if Robin was really on board with Crocodile or if she was playing her own game. So I like the way that they kind of like introduced her, where she has this like kind of mystery aspect to her, but she also doesn't seem like a good person because she blew up the ship that the one guy was on that I thought died, but I guess he didn't die. So like I said, thematically, I think there's a lot of really important things that are happening here with the rebellion between the city. And also, the idea that it was all drowned out, and the old man said, it's not going to, or when it rains again, or when the water returns, that's when the town will find peace, and how it all kind of culminates to that moment at the end was a pretty well written moment. Like I said, the storytelling is good. Like I have no problem with that whatsoever. My problem is just like, it just doesn't feel, I just don't feel the weight of it. I just don't feel the importance of it. That's my problem with it. And there was this moment, all the characters kind of get their own moment, during the battle sequence towards the end, with Zoro, like finding this new strength within himself and everything. There's a lot of great moments, even, Usopp and Chopper, they play their part. So there's a lot of great stuff happening here. But the thing that really annoyed me was the Sanji fight with number 2 that can like transform himself to look like the other characters. So like, okay, I get it. This is like the other character thing that I didn't like, because the first one was Luffy fighting Zoro after like not even listening to him or not even hearing about what's happening. The second one here is with Sanji, because the dude turns into Nami or makes himself look like Nami, and it just makes Sanji unable to fight him. And I just thought this was dumb, because like, I get it. Sanji's a simp, right? He's a simp. He's a simp for Nami. He loves Nami, whatever. Like, I get it. I get that. But like, he's not an idiot. He was the one that helped get him out of the trap, calling his identity like the prince or whatever. He was the one that helped him out like numerous times. Like, he's really good at figuring things out. He's capable. He's competent. Everything they've written about Sanji as a character, he survived on the island when he was just a kid. Seems like he's a really, really intelligent, competent character. And I get like, okay, he's around pretty women. He becomes stupid, whatever. But he knows definitively that this is not Nami. It's like the only thing that makes him not want to is because he looks like Nami. Therefore, he doesn't want to hit her. But like, it's not Nami. Like, moments like this really made me miss characters like Yusuke from Yu Yu Hakusho.
I don't care if she's a girl or a baby or somebody's grandmother. I'll still knock her out.
Like, I get the joke is that he's a simp, but like, it just didn't make sense to me because Sanji is smarter than that. And it's like they kind of took away his intelligence just to play into a joke. And I didn't like that. Anyways, as it continues and Luffy has his rematch with Crocodile, I thought this fight was pretty well done. And as far as like the paneling and the artwork goes, I think this is probably like the best fight scene so far in One Piece, at least in my opinion. And like I said, I love how it culminates to like the rain finally falling, and you realize obviously this guy that's made of sand is the one that caused the drought, and so all these things kind of like poetically link up towards the end, which was good. The fight scene was a little bit better here. He's using water because it kind of like it like hardens the sand, and then he couldn't do that, and he started using his own blood. So Luffy is just determined to take him down, and Luffy is so selfless when it comes to his crew, which is another reason why I didn't like the Luffy Zoro fight from before, because he's basically saying like, if Vivi continues to fight this battle, she'll eventually die, and I can't have that happen. And Crocodile's like, well, you're fighting it, you're gonna die, and he's like I don't care if I die. So it's like, he's very selfless in the way, you could say reckless, but obviously selfless too, because for all intents and purposes, he considers Vivi to be a part of his crew, and he's willing to do anything to kind of take this guy down for that. And that was his goal from the start. And it's funny, like, you look at the early kind of entering Alabasta stuff, he's like, yeah, we're going to go kick this guy's ass. And it's like, that's not going to solve everything. But, like, when it gets to the end, when it gets to the showdown, Luffy did exactly what he said he was going to do. He's like, I'm going to kick your ass. I don't think Luffy would swear. I don't think Luffy's the kind of guy that would swear. But, like, he kicked his ass. And the finale with Vivi I thought was really good. I liked her speech to everybody, that everybody could finally hear her speak and kind of like understand what she's been doing this entire time. And also, kind of like considering her a part of the crew, but not keeping her with the crew because this was her story. Like I said, like Alabasta is really her story. And so I think it makes sense that she doesn't go with the crew, because it was like the crew was there to help enhance her story, not the other way around. Although it does kind of work the other way around, because, the characters do develop during this. I guess it does work the other way around, but like from where I'm looking at it, it seems like Luffy's crew is kind of this group that helps propel the main character, which I thought was Vivi during this segment. And I thought her goodbye was really good, and them kind of like raising their fist to her moving forward. And so I thought that was good. And at the end of the arc, Robin shows up on the ship and says, hey, I want to be part of your crew. And that's kind of like where I left it. That's chapter 217, I believe, was the last chapter I read. So anyways, where do I come down with One Piece at this point? Like, I am uncertain if I want to continue it, because although I do like the story that's happening, I have a very hard time reading it chapter to chapter just because of the silliness of it. And I also think that a lot of the silliness and the jokes and the humor kind of undercut the serious aspects of the story, in my opinion, where dramatic things that are happening don't land as hard as I want them to, because I can recognize how the writing leads up to that rain at the end of the arc, after we've talked about like the desert and the drought and the war and Crocodile's powers, and I see how it all links together, and from a storytelling standpoint I can see why that's great. But reading it myself, I didn't feel the impact that I wanted to feel. I didn't feel the emotion I wanted to feel, because it was like every chapter I read, it would just be like another joke and another joke and another joke and another joke. If it was like serious, and like I felt the stakes being as high as they were, and then that happened, it would feel like a relief. It would feel like I could breathe like a sigh, of fresh air. Like I would feel like, we went through this like intense struggle and got to the end, but I didn't feel the intensity of the struggle as much as I wanted to, just because of like the wackiness of it all. But I realize now, after reading 200 chapters of One Piece, that is just the style of the story. That is just the style of the manga. That is just what Oda does with his story, and that's going to be a staple of the series, and that will continue moving forward. So I guess I am just having difficulty kind of comprehending that I still have like 800, 900 chapters to read, dealing with the consistency of that style of writing. And again, that's not to say that it's bad, but I don't know if it's for me. So I don't know if I want to continue the series right now. I think I might put it on hold. I don't know if I'm going to drop it entirely, but I'm not really eager to continue at this point. I understand the story, like I respect it, and it definitely has merit, but I just don't know if it's for me. And like I was saying before, I really like, I'm sorry, I don't know if this makes me like a masochist or something, but I really like dark stories. I like dark stories that have like an idea of a semblance of hope, in the human spirit. But like, I like things that get serious. I like things that get dark. I like things that get tragic. I like things that get depressing. Like, I don't know. These are just the kind of stories that I like. And I just think One Piece is maybe, even though it does, delve into darker subject matter, I think it might be too lighthearted for me. And that's not to say it's bad. It just might not be for me. Anyways, guys, if I didn't make all of you mad and make you hate me, I'm just trying to be honest with you. I'm just trying to be honest about my thoughts. So I apologize if I'm not trying to insult the series or anything like that. Absolutely not. But that's my feelings about it right now. So I don't know if I want to continue One Piece. I feel like I've read a good enough chunk of it to at least understand what One Piece is all about. But maybe not. Maybe I need to read more. I don't know. If I do, I'm gonna take a break. I'm absolutely gonna take a break before I go any further. So I don't know when my One Piece journey will continue, but at least I can say that I've experienced a chunk of it. Anyways, guys, what do you think about the Alabasta arc, or the Alabasta saga? Sorry, let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Let me know if I'm out of my mind, or if you agree with me, or if you had a similar experience, or maybe you did have a similar experience where you're like, man, I like the story, but like this is just too wacky and silly for me. And then you read further and you're like, oh wait, this moment is like the moment where it gets really good. So maybe I'm just still too naive. Maybe, it just hasn't gotten to that like breaking point yet. So let me know down below. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. I really don't know how this video is going to do. I don't know. Anyways, regardless of how you feel about this video, I love you guys and I appreciate you for watching. So thank you. Thank you for spending this time with me. Check out the other stuff on the channel if you want to. If you don't want to be here anymore, if you want to unsubscribe because of my One Piece opinions, I understand. I respect you being here as long as you have. So thank you guys anyways, and I'll talk to you next time.